It is 1905. A shadow looms over Europe. The continent is on the cusp of a monumental change, and in the midst of this dark period, the infamous Count Dracula finds himself hunted and on the move. Having left his homeland of Transylvania, now under the control of Austria-Hungary, Dracula journeys across Europe, his path controlled by you, the player. As the world edges closer to the Great War, Dracula's destination is the remote Slains Castle in Cruden Bay, Scotland. Okay, so this is the bonus content for the Dracula RPG, part of the adaptable RPG system that allows you to turn any fiction into a solo RPG. This is a map actually of from 1905, which is in the lead up towards the World War I. We have Austria-Hungary, which is this area here, coming up to the German Empire like that, up through here, bordering with Russia. And then this bit's an area of interest for us because down through here, Austria-Hungary has Transylvania. So I'll just put that area in pen, because that is Romania, and if we look at Romania now, it actually includes this bit here, which has this mountain range like that. Maybe not that part there. And then Austria-Hungary comes through like this, and down here on the other coast there, which is part of, that's all Croatia through there. Slovenia. And then up through Austria, which actually extends out a little bit like that. Not as much as there is today of Austria, and up through there, Czech Republic is now up there. Slovakia, Poland, of course, is this big area just there. Hungary in the middle, which we know is still there. The countries below it are Serbia and Albania, all the way down to Greece, which is kind of where the World War I kicks off. Italy, we'll leave Italy out of the picture. We have the French Republic, which is through here, around Switzerland just there. And that's actually bordering straight onto the German Empire. So places like Belgium and Amsterdam up like that, so that. Okay, which brings us to the German Empire, which comes across the top of Switzerland just here and bordering on there, straight onto the Austrian-Hungarian Empire like that. Bordering it, this is all Poland. We now know as Poland. Now, I think Czech is in there, so I think it's actually just Poland and Germany just here. So Poland would normally come through there. That's all part of. This is all the later. This is before World War I. Like so. They have those ports still all the way up to Denmark, and then come through here. Netherlands is just on that side bit, and then Belgium. Now, the Russian Empire is here. This is the Black Sea. We know this well from Underpunks. Actually, we'll start all the way over here. We'll actually start Georgia, which is very Underpunks, and I lived there for a while. Comes out like that. Caspian Sea on the other side there. We'll just ignore that little bit there. Coming up into Russia, and then you've got Ukraine through there is all part of Russian Empire, all the way to the border there with Romania. And then you go all the way up like this. These countries here, which are now broken off, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, are all part of the Russian Empire. And then interesting in today's current events is the fact that Finland, which would normally go up, let me just bring that down. In today's current events, Finland, which would normally border onto Russia just there, actually sort of goes like that, is all part of the Russian Empire, which of course means that, Russia still considers and would like to get this back, including Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. The reason is for ports. These are cold water ports, so those ones are not so important. But probably from a political point of view, this one is very important. This is the Ukraine area, which actually does have a warm water port. So that's the Russian Empire. Sweden and Norway up there are the same. And we'll probably do this one in pink. We've got the United Kingdom, Scotland, Ireland, and that all is actually, so that's, I joined them up. There's a see-through there. So that one is actually Ireland's part of the United Kingdom at that point, 1905. So really, what is stuck out? So Netherlands is kind of its own thing. Sweden and Norway up through here, kind of their own thing. Denmark is this bit here. Switzerland here, of course, stays out of the picture in both the wars. And then we've got Italy is kind of its own thing. Italy has got a little bit of territory that I think it either grows or shrinks, but it's some of the territory up the top here. Spain, Kingdom of Spain and Portugal, I think they're still separated. Let's move that down for you. And we'll add in this island here as being French, whereas this one is Italian. This is all 1905. And then here is top of Africa. This section in here is all French, which leaves Morocco here as independent and separate at this point. We've got the Italian Protectorate of Tanzania, which is sort of, I suppose you could call it Italian, but we'll just put that in yellow there for now. However, I will mark out this area, now known as Turkey, for the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire, of course, has shrunk a lot, and prior to this had a much bigger hold. It's sort of been pushed out of the picture. It comes all the way up there, and at Georgia, and then comes down through here. There we go. So, and we'll leave that part out of it. That's Jabal Shamir, and then Persia over here is, and we'll just mark that off separately in here. Right, so that leaves a little bit of United Kingdom control here and there. And these islands, I do believe, are United Kingdom as well. That's roughly the picture from 1905. So we'll just scan across that, and then the Ottomans down the bottom. So you can see this area right here, if we can just zoom in on that a little bit, becomes one of the big areas of conflict. Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania, down to Greece, those sort of countries, Bosnia, Montenegro, Albania, Slovenia, become a big kind of point of conflict. Now, people do start making deals, of course, during the war and after the war, which is how we get to a more diverse set of countries. A lot of races and things like that become independent. So to give you an example of that, Some of the races that have been absorbed by the Austrian-Hungary Empire just here are Germans, Czechs, Slovaks, the Ruthenians, which is pretty much over here. That would be what we now know as Ukraine and Belarus, East Slavic. Slovenia, Serbo-Croatia, Italians and Romanians are kind of all been absorbed up in this Austria-Hungary Empire. So what does that mean for us in a Dracula game where you play as Dracula and you are in 1905 and you are trying to get through all of this? This is all building up. Everyone is gearing up. It's not like the spark of World War One was very preempted, and everyone's sort of gearing up to grab and divide as much land. These empires are all about to clash. All right, so what does this mean for Dracula, who has to travel from what is right on the border of Romania and Austria-Hungary, Transylvania, up through Austria-Hungary, through the German Empire, and then by sea all the way up to Edinburgh in Scotland to Slains Castle. Let me zoom in and we will have a closer look. Right, so Bucharest is here. That's part of Romania. We actually need to be, Dracula's castle is up on here on Borgo Pass. He's going to come down by carriage to there. The game will decide whether he uses a driver or drives himself. He will need to feed at night, of course, things like that. So there'll be little trackers and stuff like that, which we talk about in the PDF a little bit more. Then this won't be straight lines, of course, but then he's going to come all the way over here to Budapest. And then from Budapest, probably follow the Danube River, and which will take him up through to Vienna. And then we've got two choices. He can either go to Prague, most likely might go to Munich into the German Empire, and then come up through Nuremberg and head to Hamburg, and then catch the boat all the way over here to Edinburgh. That's basically the map that we're kind of looking at. There's a lot of research that sort of you go down when you're organising your game, and this becomes very interesting trying to find out just everything that I've just showed you in terms of, it's just something you probably wouldn't have dived into. So in some ways, making the map and the 8 locations that are required by the adaptable solo RPG that you need to set up beforehand is in itself a gameplay session. Just to reiterate, scene 1 will be Castle Dracula, which is up on the Borgo Pass and then comes down to Cluj in Transylvania, which is just there. Mountains, forests, villages. Attempt to lure and command a merchant to transport the coffin-laden crates to Cluj while Dracula shadows the night carriage, and will need to feed on a wayward traveller along the way to avoid killing the driver. So the point here is, and the question you might ask is, well, why doesn't Dracula just turn into a bat and fly? The answer to that is he needs to transport his coffins and his earth so that he can rest at various times during the day. Then we go from Cluj to Budapest, which is this one right here, a night train. He'll be tempted by his hunger. It's all run by a blood meter. He'll be forced to feed. He must evade suspicion, officials inspecting cargo, because he is now deep into Austria-Hungary territory, which is a lot of political stuff going on. There will be a priest on board that train with a holy relic who might sense his darkness and start tipping off all of the hunters, scholars and priests who will be hunting him down. This is well after the original period of Dracula, where the Bram Stoker wrote the book. So we're talking like 30 years later, something like that, 25 years later. We're also putting a little bit of weird gadgetry and tech in the form of the relics, and which is the main reason why he's being hunted, is because he's lived for so long, he's hoarded a lot of relics which he's carrying with him. And in actual fact, he'll need one of those to unlock some underground chambers and stuff that are up hidden underneath Slains Castle. So where were we? Budapest. Budapest to Vienna. We'll probably do that by riverboat because we're going up the Danube. He's probably more accustomed to going by boats than he would be by trains. Although he will be stopping at bustling docks, the blood meter again is going to likely be low because he would have had to have maintained secrecy in cramped quarters. When he gets to Vienna, he could be hunting in Gothic alleys. There could be a scholar at this point who will be armed with vampire lore who might track him. So one of the mechanics that comes from the Fury of Dracula board game, which has one player playing as Dracula, has an awesome map, and it has fast travel using trains, is that Dracula can't use those trains, which allows the hunters to, once Dracula's location has been revealed, to get very quickly into place for combat. We'll be attaching a lot of spies to Dracula, but also a spy network for the scholars and priests to be able to send telegraph ahead and get people in place. So you'll be always rolling for a different tracker, unless he's actually on the same train. All right, so where were we? Vienna. We'll just say for now we'll go to Munich. I've only written it for Munich, but we could have written it up to Prague. Foothills Forest Borders is a 350-mile train journey through Austria to what we know as Austria now, to Munich, crosses into Bavaria. There'll be border checks at Passau that will threaten his cargo. A trail of blood is now bringing hunters on his trail, patrolling the route and forcing him to feed in the wilds or stay hidden. Then we go Munich here, all the way up to Hamburg. A very, very long journey. This is 450 miles through Nuremberg and Hanover. We are 1905, so a lot of the stations will be lit up with electric lights as we go through Germany, which will make stealth a lot harder for him. Scholars and hunters will now be setting traps with UV-emitting lanterns, as well as any artifacts that they might have. They could even confront him at the docks as he books a ship to go across here to Edinburgh. Now, one of the options that we do have, which I'll build into the RPG just for myself to give some variety and a bit of replayability, will be instead to go to Whitby in England, which is kind of on the coast there. So that's London, Edinburgh there. That's kind of like North Yorkshire. That one would be a 600-mile voyage aboard a cargo schooner. He must feed on the crew one by one to survive the 3 to 5 night journey. He'll use his blood drain to discreetly to avoid a mutiny on the ship. Arriving in Whitby, a priest will probably approach him, sense his arrival, or already be tipped off. From Whitby, he could travel up here by railway or by carriage. It's a 110-mile journey to go from Whitby all the way up here through the moors, the desolate moors of Yorkshire. And again, there would be electric lights at the stations to make stealth tricky. And by this stage, we'd have entire teams descending for the big finale on this trip across land here, which is why I think it's probably a better option, just so that, we get a longer journey through here for the sort of pre-boss fight. Once we get to Edinburgh up here, we do have one final journey. It's a 100-mile leg by train to Aberdeen, and then he'll probably need to get a carriage to Cruden Bay from there, which is right up on the tip up here like this, where Slane's castle is. A scholar will confront him at the castle wielding holy relics, which will put Dracula on a stat -2 for all stats. Dracula must use ancient relic tech +1 to activate a mechanism to secure his new lair, which would be the sort of end game scenario for Dracula. He could fail at any point during that journey. So again, this is just really an example to this is just an example of how you would start researching. It's all outlined in the first 10 pages that we have up for the adaptable solo RPG. You could apply this to anything, but I just wanted to showcase some of the research that would go into putting together your particular solo RPG. You won't have to worry about the dice roll mechanics and things like that, but you will, of course, have to work on your lore and your characters. You won't be rolling for characters because most of the characters you're going to pick are going to be known, or at least the character you're playing as will probably be known. Okay, so just to wrap that up, I'll just give you a quick run through on kind of the research process. Scotland's a perfect setting, especially as Bram Stoker wrote the first few chapters of that book in Cruden Bay. I thought it was Cruden Bay. No, it's Cruden Bay. There's a beautiful ruin of a castle there. It's kind of hugging the cliffs, and probably would be very much the inspiration for the original castle from his novel. The original, a lot of people consider Bram Stoker's to be the original Dracula fiction. However, it's not. There are actually a lot of original stories before that. One of them actually involved a female vampire. So I kind of want to have a look at those at some point. I don't think I've mentioned them on the right just here. I ran out of room. The journey, all my favourite stories involve an epic journey. So the idea of Dracula travelling across the land, mixing up his travel plans en route, it's just a kind of cool concept. Normally he's not put on trains. It's probably something he wouldn't really prefer to do, but I find that add a little bit more excitement to this journey, and also just make it a little bit quicker. The tech, I wanted to spice up the vampire genre with some kind of diesel punk, not steampunk. It's kind of in between, actually. It's in between steampunk and diesel punk. It's right before World War One, which marks the start of the diesel punk era. Alternate science fiction, really I'm just throwing in some ancient artifacts there to spice up the magic element. I'm using Dracula's kind of skills and considering those to be a magic skill, or sort of arcane magic. But yeah, so I wanted to spice that up a little bit and also just give a reason for why he's being hunted. They're not just out to kill him, they're out to get all of his relics. Maybe they've got hold of some of them and they want the rest. And the reason he's attempting to transport his relics and some of his coffins and basically set up a new base in Scotland is because his castle's just now so well known and under siege. And there is something underneath, which I won't even spoil that for myself because I haven't thought of it or rolled for it. But there's something underneath Slane's castle, which an artifact would turn everything into chaos in terms of the UK and give him a lot more control. The foes are going to be slightly different. They're sort of priests and scholars, but really well armed priests and scholars who, again, are out to get the technology for their governments, as all of these governments I mentioned in the maps kind of lead up to what will be a very different World War One. So that's kind of like the basics of where I wanted to go with that. However, and I'll just zoom in on this for you. However, I just thought I'd run through some of the inspiration I've written in the book here that kind of inspired me to along the path of researching how I was going to set this up. The German expressionist vampire film Nosferatu. It's an old classic silent film, something I've always wanted to set music to. The tabletop role-playing game, Lasergeek will be very familiar with this one, Vampire the Masquerade. It was released in 1991 and has lots and lots of sort of gothic punk publications and supplements for it because it's been around for so long. It's quite political, but it does actually already do the switch of playing as vampires. The 1987 film Lost Boys, huge inspiration, just throwing that one in there because it's just such a great film. Now this one's huge. This one, I want to say it's Pelican Press, can't remember. A lot of this section here will pretty much come from that same publisher. There's a massive book called The Dracula Dossier. I think it started on Kickstarter, and it got quite popular. So with a lot of unlocks and goals, stretch goals, it turned into something which really is almost unreadable now because the sheer time that it would take to use that book to kind of set something up. So really, it's just a really good quick open to sort of get your own creative juices flowing and get into that. It uses their own Knight's Black Agent system, which is a secret agent investigation kind of rule set. They do have some classic vampire lore, but it is full of their own political law and factions and conspiracies that would set you. It's massive. We'll move on. They did. If you're interested in that and you want an easier read, the Harker Intrusion, which is a short sort of one-shot adventure, was actually designed to sort of ease people into the Dracula's dossier. That would be the one to have a look at first. Trial of Cthulhu, I think it's them again, the same publisher. A little bit investigation, except it's pretty, so this is probably before they had their own Knights Black Agent system. It uses the Gumshoe system, which is an investigation system. And to be honest, Dracula's, the original novel, because of the way it's set out with letters and diary entries and stuff like that, is actually very much a investigation sort of genre. Moving down to Deadlands. Deadlands is probably the one that I'll look at the most in terms of how it'll work in terms of combat, survival, pulp. Try and pinch a few ideas from that. I will have my own die system already, so Deadlands is built on the Savage World system, which is just good at combat, and but it already has all of the characters. You're pretty much playing as harrowed, undead characters in Deadlands. Magic the Gathering. I always like to throw in a collectible card game reference for anything that I'm going to be putting together using the Adaptable Solo RPG system. Simply because they would have already done all of the balancing for the characters. So a good example of that is, one of my favourite movies, The Crow. Is I have the collectible card game for that, and each character in The Crow, from T-Bird to Brandon Lee's character to the officer to the young girl, all have the stats already sorted and put on them in cards, so they'll already be balanced. For this one, I'm only really looking at Magic the Gathering because they already have some kind of Dracula sets, quite a few. And the one that stands out would be Olivia Voldaren, who is a 3/3. If she deals 1 damage to a target, then that target creature becomes a vampire that she gets control of, as well as Olivia gets a +1/+1 counter put on her card. And then I've added a couple of references to some artifacts, and the Ozolith is a cool one for that because it would be a good one to combo with Olivia because it allows you to transfer +1 counters onto the card, the artifact, and then off onto other creatures. The video game Bloodborne, obviously a lot of work, a lot of development would have already gone into that and has gone into that. So, they all have traits like superhuman strength, speed, durability or immortality, heightened senses, arcane magic, vermin summoning, vulnerabilities, true physical appearance revealed when feeding, which will probably be one of the important parts of the way I run this, and biting foes to create other vampires or thralls. I will be looking at the fandom page. I won't actually be playing the game to research that. I'll just go straight to the fandom page. And then this one is just really, really, really cool. This is a very cool board game. It's called Fury of Dracula. It's one player is always playing Dracula, and there's always 3 hunters. No matter how many people you've got playing, there will always be 3 hunters. So if you do have 3 other people, then you'd have 3 people playing as the hunters. Dracula can't use the fast travel trains to get anywhere, so he has to kind of move slowly and secretly, and his path is kind of mapped almost like a snake, so he can't backtrack on places because he actually takes the location card and hides it underneath his card so that his trail or history can be proven should any of the hunters get close to him or get to a location that he's already been at. It's got a really, really cool map that kind of folds out. I think it's just a paper map, but it's a really, really cool map of Europe that kind of folds out, and a lot of the location cards, and just some really cool gameplay mechanics, which we could also look at as well. That's the end of this video. It's basically just some bonus content. If you haven't seen the Adaptable Solo RPG or the Dracula Solo RPG episode 1, this video is exclusive to Patreon and is a follow-on for that, and the only place that you'll get me to go through the map information.